Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janma Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Janma Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Prajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Prajajanaranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai Shri Radha Damodar Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupada Paramhamsa Brihvajrakacharya Stotra Sahita Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupada Paramhamsa Brihvajrakacharya Astotra Sahita Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Give me a second to pull up the digital verse here. Not quite as nice as holding the book in your hand all the time, but very convenient. And so my very humble and respectful obeisances to all the devotees who have worked to digitize Srila Prabhupada's words, his books. You can find everything online. It's amazing. You can search anything. And even though we are not Shruti Dhara, we can find everything we need to know quickly. Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Canto 4, chapter 30, text number 9. And I guess I'm reading 10 too, right? Because there's no purport to text number 9. I didn't actually look at the list, but I'm just assuming that. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, Chapter 30, text number 9. This is the Lord speaking. Wow. Yonusmarati sandhyayam yushman anudinam naraha tasya bhatrishvatma samyam tatha bhuteshu sohridam. Yonusmarati sandhyayam yushman anudinam naraha tasya bhatrishvatma samyam tatha bhuteshu sohridam. Yonusmarati sandhyayam yushman anudinam naraha tasya bhatrishvatma samyam tatha bhuteshu sohridam. Word for word translation says, Yaha, one who, anusmarati, always remembers, sandhyayam, in the evening, yushman, you, anudinam, every day, naraha, human being, tasya bhatrishu, with his brothers, atmasamyam, personal equality, tata, as also, bhuteshu, with all living beings, sohridam, friendship. We can intuit pretty clearly what this verse is saying. The Lord continued, it's his benediction to the prachetas and also to every one of us who's hearing this. The Lord continued, those who remember you every evening of every day will become friendly with their brothers and with all other living entities. Those who remember you, this is the Lord speaking to the prachetas, every evening of every day, will become friendly with their brothers and with all other living entities. It is Kali Yuga and everything's weird, so I wonder if the Lord will give us some credit for remembering in the morning. I don't know if anyone's making a habit of remembering the prachetas in the evening. If you are, please tell us. But at least we're remembering now in the morning. I hope Krishna will also accept us. Before I comment, I guess we'll go to the next verse. We should read the verse in purport first. Text number 10 says, Ye tumam rudra gitena sayam prata samahita stuvantyaham kamavaran dase pragyam cha shobhanam. Those who will offer me the prayers composed by Lord Shiva, both in the morning and in the evening, will be given benedictions by me. In this way, they can both fulfill their desires and attain good intelligence. Purport. Good intelligence means going back home, back to Godhead. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, text number 10. The first sloka ever learned, 10:10. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayantite. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Wow. Krishna is so liberal, so kind. Prabhupada continues saying, one who offers prayers to the Lord to fulfill his different desires must know that the highest perfectional fulfillment of desire is to go back home, back to Godhead. In this verse, it is indicated that those who remember the activities of the prachetas, the sons of King Prachinabarhishat, will be delivered and blessed. So what to speak of the sons of King Prachinabarhishat, who are directly connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead? This is the way of the parampara system. If we follow the acharyas, we attain the same benefit as our predecessors. If one follows the decisions of Arjuna, he should be considered to be directly hearing Bhagavad Gita from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is no difference between hearing Bhagavad Gita directly from the Supreme Lord and following a personality like Arjuna, who formerly heard Bhagavad Gita directly from the Lord. Sometimes foolish people argue that since Krishna is not present at the moment, one cannot take direct instructions from him. Such foolish people do not know that there is no difference between directly hearing Bhagavad Gita and reading it, as long as one accepts Bhagavad Gita as it is, spoken by the Lord. However, if one wants to understand Bhagavad Gita by his imperfect interpretations, one cannot possibly understand the mysteries of Bhagavad Gita, even though one may be a great scholar according to mundane estimation. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnana Timarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Manitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavatam, full of juicy nectar, Herein the Lord is saying that just by remembering the prachetas, remembering the prayer or reciting the same prayer that Lord Shiva recited, every day one will become friendly with their brothers and with all other living entities. Wouldn't that be awesome? What is actually said in the Sanskrit, tasya bhratrish atma samyam. So there's naraha, all beings, all humans, tasya bhratrishu, with brothers, bhuteshu, and tata bhuteshu, with all living beings, atma samyam, a sense of equality. We can have a sense of equality with our brothers and with all other living entities. The problem is, of course, we don't want a sense of equality with our brothers and all living entities. We highly covet and cherish our differences and our position in the pecking order of life, which is kind of sad. Of course, on the material level, there is no equality. It's not possible. It's a sentiment. Sometimes it dominates a political discourse. We'll all be equal, like in communism or socialism. But the fact of the matter is, we are not equal materially. If you were to measure all sorts of people by every sort of metric possible, their intelligence and their wealth, their beauty, their capabilities, their experiences, you won't find two people out of 8 billion now. I think we just got up to 8 billion. Go team. Out of the 8 billion people, you won't find two who are exactly equal. Even amongst genetic twins, still there's some difference. I had friends in high school who were genetic twins, but still they were different. They're very similar, such that it was creepy, but they still did some things differently from each other. And they've taken different paths now in different places, of course, married separate spouses and gone in different directions. So there's not equality on the material level. And any idea to try to make that happen is obviously an illusion. It's a sentiment, and it can be exploited for some political or corporate gain, like everything else in Kali Yuga. But we should recognize there is equality on the spiritual level. It's so important. It's kind of like the foundation of everything that we hold dear in modern secular society. This whole idea of democracy is based on this on the concept of equality. Right? We all remember the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. They included women a little bit later, but they had the right spirit. All men are created equal, endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, such as life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So good old Jefferson at the time was recognizing there's some spiritual equality. It's not material, obviously. They still had slavery at the time, and women were not given that same right to vote until much later. But still, he recognized there's some sort of spiritual equality there. And we should be really interested in that, because that's the solution to all of our problems, actually. As Queen Kunti says, samam charantam sarvatra bhutanam yanmita kali. Queen Kunti, that's such a good verse. We should look it up. It's in the 8th chapter, of course, of the 1st canto. Samam charantam sarvatra bhutanam yanmita kali, where she says that the Lord is equal to everybody. She doesn't, the Lord doesn't favor this one or that one, but the different experiences and statuses of life of every living entity is due to their own social interaction. Meaning we're generating all sorts of bad karma with the way that we treat each other. The Lord is samam charantam. He's equal to everyone. Like it said here, atma samyam. But we are not equal to everyone. And so that's why we have positions that are higher and lower, better or worse, or suffering or enjoying. It's because of the way we treat other living entities. That's how we accrue our karma. Bhutanam yanmita kali. We know some of these words. Bhutanam, all the people. Yanmita. Mita can mean like some conflict. Or, I'm sorry, Kali means conflict. Like the Kali Yuga. So this should be really important to us. How can I see everyone equally? How can I have this sort of personal equality, seeing everyone at least equal to me? Krishna also says this in chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita, right? Hold on a second. When in doubt, whip it out. The old Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6. I think it's like text 32, where he talks about who's a really good yogi. Hold on, bear with me. Now. Yeah, chapter 6, text number 32. This is so cool. This is what Krishna is saying. It's Krishna. And we just heard in the next purport that if we're hearing Bhagavad Gita as it is, then it's like directly hearing from Krishna. So it's not me talking. It's actually Krishna. He says, Atmopamyena sarvatra samam pashyati Arjuna sukham va yadiva dukham sayogi paramomataha. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress. O Arjuna. O Yasodeva. You might as well say, O Yasodeva, pay attention here. That's the real yogi. By comparison, sees the equality, just like myself, these living entities, every one of these people who are searching for something in this world, what to speak of all the humans, every living entity is just like myself on a spiritual level. Samam pashyati, by comparison to oneself, in both their happiness and their distress. And Krishna is implying that we have mixed happiness and distress, and so there's not equality on the material level. Your happiness and your distress is the indication of your inequality. Some people have a little more happiness, some people have more distress. Sometimes it's changing all the time. Nothing is static in this material world, in this Kali Yuga. The only thing that's static is birth, old age, disease, and death. So this should be really important to us. This should be very interesting to us. Actually, our happiness and distress, our problems, our status, higher and lower, is mostly caused by our interaction with other living entities, as is implied by Queen Kunti, Bhutanam Yanmita Kali, and that the Lord is equal to everybody. He loves all of us. How can he favor one over another? He doesn't have any sort of insecurity like that. But we are not seeing everyone in the way that the Lord sees everyone. And that's our problem. That's our fault. So here, the Lord is blessing both the prachetas and everyone who hears the story of the prachetas. You can see it the way I see it, right? Isn't that a good relationship when you see eye to eye? You want to see it the way the Lord sees it. That's a relationship, not just having a picture on the wall, but to see it the way the Lord sees it. Just like my wife and I, she just did this thing because it's almost our 8-year marriage anniversary, 10 years together, in 4 days. So she got one of these like things, you know, where you're supposed to, it's like these relationship things, you're supposed to sit down and like talk about your relationship. It was cute. And it's all about learning each other's love language. You're supposed to go through these little tests and answer these questions and, you know, find out more about your partner or be reminded about your partner. It's a cute little exercise. Leading up to our anniversary. That's her idea, of course, because men tend to be insensitive. So she's reminding me. And anyway, the whole point is like, you learn again how to see it the way your partner sees it. Not just see your partner the way you see them, but try to see their perspective also. That's a real relationship. You can have pictures of someone on the wall, but if you don't really see it the way they see it, what is the relationship? So Krishna wants us to see things the way he sees it. He sees everyone equally, right? He says it several times in Bhagavad Gita. Samam pashyati, what is it? You know the verse, Taraka Prabhu. Samam pashyati Arjuna. Anyway, that he sees everyone equally. So this should be a big concern for us. Can I see all the living entities the way that Krishna sees them? And here he's blessing us that if we hear the story of the prachetas, their camaraderie, their cooperation, then by the grace of the Lord, we'll be blessed to be able to see everyone equally, Atma Samyam, and to get over this pecking order mentality. I want to be a little bit better than the next person. we're all just gliding towards death. But it's like, well, I'm gliding better. So in the next verse, text number 10, anyway, I hope I made a nice point there. I hope it's relevant and people appreciate that. And let's try our best. If anyone has some comments about being equal and friendly with all living entities, I'd love to hear, because it is a real challenge. And the way Kali Yuga is progressing is that it's really pulling us apart more and more every day. I mean, the coronavirus pandemic lockdown thing really just accelerated that. Statistically, it's been shown that now more than ever, people are feeling disconnected. People are feeling a lack of community, a lack of serious relationships. I read some article a long time ago, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was talking about how many people in different age groups feel like they have even one close friend. And the numbers are pretty shocking. How many people don't feel like they have even a single close friend? This is all Kali Yuga. I mean, Prabhupada was talking about it long before it even happened, seriously. And we're just seeing exactly what Prabhupada said manifesting. That there is a lot of disconnect. And it's crippling for many people. It's crippling. Especially holidays like Thanksgiving, Christmas, they end up being like the number one suicide days of the year, because many people are feeling totally disconnected. They're not a part of anything. They're not a part of any community. They don't have any serious relationships or friendships. So this should be a pretty big concern for us, not just for our personal well-being in Krishna consciousness, but in our preaching and in our Sankirtan. We should know that more than anything else, and I will testify this until death, more than anything else, people want community. We give them the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. We have our Bhagavad Gita discussions or classes. We give them the ecstasy of kirtan and the joy of taking prasadam. But what they want more than anything else, every living entity, and especially young humans nowadays, is they want community. They feel so disconnected. Even though they've got technology and devices, which apparently should have them connected with all people at all times, they feel lonelier than ever. You come and talk to some of these young people, and it's amazing how quickly they admit it too. They feel so desperately lonely. It's really quite sad. So here the Lord is reminding us, and we should take it as a serious reminder, that Krishna consciousness means we need to have a very friendly relationship with all living beings. Tata bhuteshu sohridam. And not just be obsessed with our exclusive relationship with Krishna, right? Isn't that a verse that Srila Prabhupada quoted many, many, many times, because it's relevant for all of us? Archayam eva haraye. Archayam eva haraye, pujam yasharaye hate, natad bhakteshu chanyeshu sabhakta prakrita smritaha. Comes from the 12th canto, no, it's the 11th canto with the Navi Yogendras. Anyway, they make a statement that one who's just concerned with the worship of the Lord, Archayam, Eva Hareye, of Hari, Pujam Yashareye Hete, and worships faithfully, with a lot of faith, but does not similarly worship all living entities. Pujam Yashareye Hete, Natad Bhakteshu Anyeshu, one who doesn't similarly worship puja, the bhaktas, and cha anyeshu, means others, all other people, is sabhakta prakrita smrita, is considered a materialistic devotee. So let me just repeat that, because probably a lot of us fall in this category, at least I do. One who worships the Lord with faith, pujan shadayehate, but cannot similarly worship or honor the devotees and all living entities, is a materialistic devotee. We think, I'm so dear to Krishna. I'm way up there. I'm high up that parampara totem pole. I'm getting, in my community, I have such and such status or whatever, because I'm so dear to the Lord, or I'm so close to the Lord, or whatever. We get all sorts of things into our head. Thank you, Tarika Prabhu. We can all read the verse in the chat. But if we don't similarly honor, because puja means honor, archa means worship, like in the temple. Puja actually means to honor. So we're always doing puja, like when we do guru puja, we might not do a lot of archana, but you can honor the guru just by bowing down, by singing a song, by dancing, kirtan. So we have to do puja for every living entity, for all the devotees, to honor them in a similar way that we honor the Lord. Obviously, not everyone is the Lord. We're not into Mayavad stuff, but we have to similarly honor all living entities and the devotees. Otherwise, one is sabhakta prakrita smita, a materialistic devotee, still pleasing to Krishna, but not as pleasing as someone who, as described in this verse here, text number 9, sees a sort of personal equality with all living beings. And as Krishna said in chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita, who by comparison to his own self sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress. So we got to get over ourselves a little bit and get into community a bit. What's implied, if I may be so bold, and I'll allow anyone to challenge me on this point, but what's implied in this pastime, especially of the prachetas, is that we are more closely related to the Lord as a community than we are individually. Y'all think about that, and if someone wants to contest, I'm interested to hear. But this is something that I get from this story, particularly the Lord is glorifying these prachetas because of their cooperation. This famous verse, text number 8, that Sarvama Prabhu read yesterday, indicates that they're very dear to the Lord because of their community, because of their cooperation, because of their camaraderie. And then the Lord blesses them. You're friendly with all living beings. This is very pleasing to Krishna. It implies that we're more closely related, we're more closely connected to the Lord in community than in our attempt to do it individually, isolated. This is what pleases Krishna. When we cooperate, not just with all the devotees in ISKCON, of course, that's also a challenge. It's a dynamic and diverse community all over the world, and certainly there's challenges to be a part of that. But also, cha anyeshu, with all living entities, we got to be a part of the community, not isolated. And that's what people want. And that's what Sankirtan is. That's what's most effective in Sankirtan. People are so lonely. If you can connect with them, care about them, it touches them more than anything else. And then they are receptive to the message of Bhagavad Gita. They're receptive to the holy names of Krishna. They need to feel care in community. That's what people want. All right, I'm done with that point from text number 9. We should comment on text number 10, if that's all right with everybody. We'll move on, unless there's some thoughts or comments on this idea of camaraderie, cooperation, seeing all living entities equally, seeing things the way Krishna sees it. Please feel free to butt in. Otherwise, I will continue with text number 10. Because in the purport, Srila Prabhupada makes some very interesting points about how we receive knowledge and how we understand. And that just hearing Bhagavad Gita, and following it the way that Arjuna follows it is like directly hearing from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, we might not always feel that. We think that, oh, it would be so nice to be with Krishna, there on the chariot. Probably wouldn't be so nice to be at the Battle of Kurukshetra. Most of us are ill-prepared for that sort of thing. But it would be nice to hear Bhagavad Gita as Krishna is speaking it. But Prabhupada believes fully in this science of parampara, that is delivered, the message is delivered and unaltered, and that it's just like directly hearing from the Lord. And we can have that experience. We should have that experience. You can imagine, follow along with me on a bit of a thought experiment here. You can imagine if today, the year 2022, November 26th, it was announced His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, is coming to Gita Nagari. And, we might be confused thinking, oh, he's gone. He's left this world. But putting that aside, if it were somehow announced, Srila Prabhupada is coming here to Gita Nagari today, he's going to be speaking Krishna Katha, preaching Krishna consciousness. He'll be in the temple room, at 10 a.m., be there. Like, can you imagine how we would all react? What would you do? What would you do? We'd all just drop everything. You'd drop everything. You just quit your job for the day. You'd run to be there an hour early up front, just hoping to hear directly from the mouth of Srila Prabhupada, right? Wouldn't we all just be in ecstasy to do that? We'd cross over mountains, the lame would walk, the blind would see, the deaf would hear again, just to be able to see Srila Prabhupada and hear him, right? We would just be so eager, so ecstatic. Just go along with this little fantasy for a second, right? We'd run. We'd just run there. I want to hear from Srila Prabhupada. But what would he say? In this fantasy of ours, of course, we'd all be so eager. We'd be so ecstatic. We'd make time, no doubt, to go and be there in the room with him and hear him talking. But what would he say? What would Srila Prabhupada say? He'd just say everything that's already here in Bhagavad Gita. It's not like he'd say something that we don't already know, that we haven't already heard, that we don't already have access to in Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Nectar of Devotion, and so many other wonderful books. The point of this little thought experiment is to consider we are directly hearing from Srila Prabhupada. That's our experience of parampara. That's our experience of the transcendental science of Krishna Katha. If Prabhupada appeared today, he would just be saying the same things that are in Bhagavad Gita. In the purports, he's already written in Srimad Bhagavatam, in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Prabhupada is very consistent with his message. Very, very consistent. So we should consider that our good fortune when we pick up Srila Prabhupada's books, when we pick up Srimad Bhagavatam, we start reading the verses and purports. We should consider, I get to hear directly from Prabhupada. It's just like as if he was sitting down in this room with me and preaching Krishna consciousness. Well, this is what he'd say. These verses and purports of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Well, that's what he would say. So it's like sitting down directly with him. That's the point that Prabhupada's making in this purport. This is the way of the parampara system. If we follow the acharyas, we attain the same benefit as our predecessors. It's like hearing directly from Krishna. Hare Krishna. It's like hearing directly from him. And we shouldn't think that there's something different. Just like we shouldn't think that if Srila Prabhupada, miraculously appeared today and was lecturing in the temple at Gita Nagari at 10 a.m., that he would say something any different from what he's already written in his purports in Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. That's exactly what he would say. There might be some different, relevant examples or something, but the message would be the same. So that's what Prabhupada's saying here. This is the parampara system. It's like directly hearing from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just like reading Prabhupada's books is directly hearing from Prabhupada. Sometimes foolish people argue that since Krishna is not present at the moment, one cannot take direct instructions from him. Such foolish people do not know that there is no difference between directly hearing Bhagavad Gita and reading it, as long as one accepts Bhagavad Gita as it is, spoken by the Lord. So that's what we do. We spend time with Srila Prabhupada by reading his books. It's not just about information accumulation. It's about spending time with his divine grace, with our acharya. Just like we would drop everything and run to the temple room. If Prabhupada were there at 10 o'clock today, we would run because we want to spend time with Srila Prabhupada. Well, that's what we do when we pick up his books. We should know, now is my time to associate with the acharya, with my guru, my param guru. That's how we hear. It's not just about how do I get the knowledge from Prabhupada, like separated from him. So then now I've got it. And now I control that knowledge. That's how people approach university education. Professor has some knowledge and you kind of like take it from them. And if possible, then you also reject them and do something different, right? That's the whole Kali Yuga academic way. what is it that Bhishma said? Nasa Risha Yasya Matam Nabhinam. Anyone who wants to be a rishi, a great thinker who's very knowledgeable, they have to be different from everybody else. You have to say something new, something different. That's the mundane way of knowledge. You separate the knowledge from the person, and if possible, even surpass that person. But that's not how we approach the knowledge of Krishna consciousness. When we read Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, we're associating with Srila Prabhupada. We're reciprocating with him. It's our relationship with him. Prabhupada had a relationship with all of us. Do you know when and how? Every night at like midnight. Prabhupada, he set in stone. He solidified his relationship with all of his followers and all living entities by getting up early or staying up late. I can't even comprehend how it is that he did it. And translating Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and commenting, writing his purports. He spent hours doing this every day, practically every day. Can we reciprocate? That's how we understand and have a direct relationship with his divine grace and directly here with Krishna. If we reciprocate in that mood, Srila Prabhupada put in the effort to produce this wonderful Krishna conscious literature. That we put in the effort to associate with him by picking up the book and hearing daily. Or, however we can hear. Now we have so much access to hearing. Just yesterday I was driving a lot and I had, Bhagavad Gita audiobook on, the one narrated by Damodar Prabhu. He has that nice sultry voice like olive oil. It's just so nice to hear. I just thought it's so easy for us now in Kali Yuga. It's so easy for us. Back in the old days, if you wanted to hear from an acharya, you'd have to hike across India or Asia for 4 weeks and climb a mountain just to find somebody to hear from. Now we just press a button on our smartphone and you can hear immediately. But what is our approach to that hearing? Are we like the mundane scholars who think, Nasavrisya Yasya Matam Nabinam, let me just get that information from this person. The person doesn't really matter. I just need the information. I'll push the person aside and then I'll become the one who possesses that knowledge and its concomitant power. If that's how we approach reading Prabhupada's books, of course, we'll miss out on a lot. But if we understand the science, or Prabhupada says, the way of the parampara system, we follow the acharya, we attain the same benefit as our predecessors. That means reciprocating with Srila Prabhupada. That means sitting down with Prabhupada and hearing from him. That's our relationship. We reciprocate with his effort to produce the literature. And Krishna also says, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. If you have that affection in your service, then dadami buddhi yogam tam. Then that buddhi yoga, it's not just buddhi, but buddhi yoga. It's not just intelligence and not just knowledge, but it's a way in which our intelligence, our consciousness is connected to the Lord. Buddhi yoga. And you attain Krishna. You come to me. So this is spiritual science. It's not just information download. We're so used to downloading information. We're doing it all the time with our various devices. We're downloading it. It's not just about information download. It's about affectionately associating with the acharya, with our guru, with the devotees, with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by associating with our ears. And that's what the Lord is encouraging the prachetas to do, and those who follow the prachetas. If you offer the prayers composed by Lord Shiva, you'll be given benedictions by me. You can fulfill your desires and attain good intelligence. Hare Krishna. So these are some thoughts I have on these 2 verses and purports. I pray that some devotees find this perspective at least inspiring and revitalizing. If you feel a revitalized eagerness to hear Srila Prabhupada's books and to associate with his divine grace. Just like if you were here at Gitanagari today, we would run like anything to go and sit down and be close to him. But he's already done better. He'd say the exact same thing that's already here in these books. So let us hear from Prabhupada every day. Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari.
I have something to add to your fantasy.
Not a fantasy when you're here, Prabhu. It's the reality.
I was living in Alachua at the time. This was in 1982 or 83. And we had a double-wide mobile home as a temple and a kitchen. And every devotee will go to the temple and pay obeisances to Prabhupada on the right, on his Vyasasan, and to Gornitai on the left on the altar. In order to go to the kitchen, you also had to do that. So if you were going to the kitchen, you went through the temple room and perfunctory put your head on the ground at a breakneck speed and just went on your way. And I had a dream where actually I did that. I was going to the kitchen, so I went through the temple room and I put my head on the ground as fast as I could. I got up and I felt like the right side of my body was on fire. I didn't know what was happening. But then I turned to my right and I saw Prabhupada on the Vyasasan, but it wasn't the Murti anymore. It was Srila Prabhupada personally glaring at me as if saying, "Oh, you thought I wasn't here. So that's a mistake on your part." So I fell flat like a rod and paid obeisances, recited the full prayer, and I woke up as my heart was beating about 200 beats per minute. I was about to have a heart attack, which made me realize that Prabhupada is actually present fully, not only in his instructions, not only in many aspects, but also in his murti. There is none different from Srila Prabhupada. So if you want to see Prabhupada in Gita Nagari, you can run at 10 or at 6 p.m. or at 2 a.m. or at whatever time. Yes, and he will be there. It will take a little bit of deep search within your heart to see that Prabhupada is there. But Prabhupada is present, maybe, and also both aspects of Prabhupada, the Vapu and the Vani, are always present. So we don't have to think that only Vani is present. Prabhupada is present in his Murti, if you have the eyes to see him. And of course, the Vani is still more important. And that's my little addition to your fantasy, Prabhu.
Thank you, Sarvatma Prabhu, for sharing your mystical experience. Sometimes we have mystical experiences in relationship with Prabhupada or with the deities. And I know it takes a lot of courage to share. And I really appreciate that. Thank you. If we're indulging in such mystical experiences, and maybe I'll quickly tell about an incredible dream I had of Srila Prabhupada, in which I saw him in a room, and he began to speak Krishna consciousness, and it just struck me like, this is so important, and everybody needs to hear this. And as he was, he didn't slow down. He just kept going and going, speaking such amazing things, such important spiritual wisdom. And I was like desperately trying to write it down, thinking, we got to get this message to the world. I was like finding little scraps of paper, a pen or something, and writing it down. I said, wait, Prabhupada, we need to record this, for prosperity forever and ever. And as I was like running around in this room trying to find some paper or pens or something, and I turned around and when I looked to where Prabhupada was sitting, it was just a whole pile of all of his books were already there. So it kind of struck me as well that Srila Prabhupada is very present in his literature. He puts so much of himself into the books, and we should see him as such. Not exclusively, of course. He's also a person. He's an individual, great devotee, but he definitely put, we could dare say, the best of himself into these books. So thank you, Sarvatma, for reminding us of the incredible mystical experiences we can have in relationship with His divine grace. Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone, for being present. I suppose we'll finish here. Even Sparkles is participating. Sparkles the cow says she misses getting everyone's good association every week on Sunday. Well, Sparkles, we miss you too. But I have a feeling that there was actually Godrumagora saying that. We miss you too, Godrumagora. Hare Krishna.
Yeah,
Would you like to say something, Taraka Prabhu?
Yeah, I'm hoping you're not going to end now. We have 10 minutes to fill with Krishna Katha. If we're going to talk about dreams, I could kick in a dream.
Please. We don't often, it's a little indulgent to share some of our mystical dreams, but please, let's hear some.
Yeah, I had a dream. I can't recall when it was. That was very similar to what Srimad Prabhu was describing. I dreamt I was back in Mayapur, and it was as it had been when I was last there in 1977. So the year I was in the temple room, and there was a very large crowd of devotees, like festival time. And everyone is chanting and dancing. And I looked to Srila Prabhupada's Vyasasana, and Srila Prabhupada is there. He's sitting there. And I thought, oh my God, this is incredible. Srila Prabhupada is back. He is back. I was amazed. And I tried to work my way through the crowd towards the Vyasasana. Srila Prabhupada was sitting there and looking out at the devotees, and the devotees were chanting and dancing, but they didn't seem to be paying any attention to the fact that he was there. It was as though that they didn't see him. And at some point, Srila Prabhupada got up from his Vyasasana and began to walk out. Nobody noticed. And he started out the door, headed for the stairway to go upstairs to his room. And I chased behind him, yelling, Srila Prabhupada, wait. And he turned around and he looked at me with a look of disgust. And he said, what do you want? And I could just feel that he was disgusted by the fact that no one was appreciating that he was present. So I didn't know what to say. I fell on the ground at his feet with my arms outstretched. And I just started crying. I said, Srila Prabhupada, I just want to serve you. And he walked towards me, and he placed his feet on top of my fingers. And with that, I was overwhelmed by ecstasy, and I woke up. But my conclusion was that Srila Prabhupada was feeling some disappointment that he was not being perceived or appreciated in his presence as his Murti, and in a host of other ways. Because Srila Prabhupada is present all over the place in so many ways, all of the time. He's, as you say, he's present in his books for sure. His Vani is present. A pure devotee is present in, oh gosh, the word is evading me now. Another senior moment. I'm sorry. On the
Vani, Vapu.
tip of my tongue, I'm thinking, no, the items that have been used by a pure devotee.
Prabhupada used the word paraphernalia.
Not the word I'm looking for.
Okay.
There's a Sanskrit word for this. Anyway,
Tadiyanam.
that's it. Tadiya. Thank you. So we have all kinds of tadiya in our temple room at Gitanagari. We have, to start with, we have Srila Prabhupada's Vyasasan. That Vyasasan was used extensively by Srila Prabhupada. He sat and spoke from that Vyasasan many times.
Wow, I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
I didn't know that.
Oh my goodness. That was.
You mean the wooden part with the pedals? I know the marble is new.
Some of the base is new, but the original base is still there. The original base and the marble on the upper portion is original. The pedals, of course, the cushion has been changed and it's been reupholstered. It was originally upholstered in blue silk with silver embroidery. And I think it was around 1973. It was introduced in at the Brooklyn Temple on Henry Street. And that remained in use by Srila Prabhupada for many of his visits until it was around the summer of 75. We replaced that Vyasasan with a new larger Vyasasan, which is the one that is now in the New York Temple. Presently that one was that's also been reupholstered, but that was the one that we constructed in 75. The Lotus Vyasasan was briefly in storage in the New York Temple when we moved to the 12-story building in Manhattan, 55th Street. Then in 76, Srila Prabhupada came to New York to that temple, and the Lotus Vyasasan was utilized by him again. He he gave a number of darshans on the roof of the building and also on the terraces, and that Vyasasan was placed there for him to sit on. There's many photos of this. At that time, it was reupholstered in red velvet. And then during that visit, he came to visit Gitanagari. And he traveled with one of the Radha Damodar buses. It wasn't actually Sri Radha Damodar or Nitai deities on that particular bus. But the Lotus Vyasasan was loaded into the bus because Gitanagari at the time didn't have a Vyasasan. Meanwhile, one of the devotees in New York raced to Gitanagari, and when he arrived there, Paramananda told him, "What are we going to do? We don't have a Vyasasan." So that devotee quickly threw together a Vyasasan from whatever materials he could find. And so when Srila Prabhupada arrived at Gitanagari, he at some point he spoke in the temple room, and he chose to, although the Lotus Vyasasan had been placed in the temple room, he chose to use the one that devotee had just thrown together, the makeshift Vyasasan. I guess he just wanted to accept the service. But that Vyasasan was used a lot by Srila Prabhupada. There's a gazillion photographs of him sitting on it, leading kirtans and speaking. Not that many photos of him speaking because he didn't allow photographs while he was speaking. the photographers would try to steal photos, but they'd get chastised if Srila Prabhupada noticed that they were photographing while he was speaking. He would complain that it would distract him. He would lose his train of thought. So mostly you only see photos of Srila Prabhupada playing a gong or kartals, kirtan. Anyway, so that's an important item of Tadiya. And of course, we have his shoes and the shawl that was made for him by Mother Satyabhama. He kept that on his feet during the period of time that he was actually on his deathbed. He was lying in Vrindavan, and that shawl was covering his legs. So we have Srila Prabhupada present in his Tadiya. It's also present in the devotees. It's present in his photos, but in every devotee, every follower of Srila Prabhupada, it's present there also. And you can get the association of Srila Prabhupada, some listening to a devotee who has Srila Prabhupada in his heart, who has heard Srila Prabhupada's message, taken that to heart. There was a time early in the movement when many devotees were attracted to Krishna consciousness without ever having met Srila Prabhupada directly. They only knew Srila Prabhupada through other devotees. But they developed tremendous attachment for Srila Prabhupada, and they came to know a great deal about him and to understand the philosophy from him, but all without directly meeting him. And many of those devotees also were initiated without ever, there are devotees that never got to meet Srila Prabhupada at all, but they became his disciples. For those devotees, generally their first contact with Srila Prabhupada was through his disciples. He was reflected in his disciples. Just like you can see the sun or the moon reflected in many different vessels of water. Srila Prabhupada was reflected in all of his disciples, and powerfully reflected. In those days, practically the only thing anyone ever spoke was the words of Srila Prabhupada. If you met any devotee, they would just go on and on about, Srila Prabhupada said this about this, and they would just go on and on telling stories of Srila Prabhupada speaking on this subject and that subject, repeating everything that he said. It was gold. It was precious. It's all anyone wanted to hear, and it's all anyone spoke. So Srila Prabhupada was present everywhere, and he's still present all over. He's everywhere in his movements in so many ways. So I guess that's all I have to contribute. We're out of time. Hare Krishna, thank you for a nice class. I really like that point about the fact that we would drop everything if Srila Prabhupada were to suddenly make an appearance. We should have that same attitude towards his books and his recordings. We have an opportunity to associate with a pure devotee, Krishna's own emissary. It's an extraordinary thing, immensely valuable, but we fail to appreciate it sometimes. Thanks again. Hare Krishna.
Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Jai Prabhupada. Shri Guru Charana Bhava Eva Bhakti Sadma Mandalita Yarasada Sadadeva Krishna Prabhu Hoya Jai Guru Dasa Padya Ike Goriya
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada
Jaya Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shri Rasa Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare, Hare Hare,
3 weeks over. Second one.